Um, um, unto all our listeners, viewers, wheresoever you are, we thank Elohim for yet another opportunity that He has granted unto us to once again be alive and to be in your midst, despite the ups and downs of what we call this life. There is a great door of opportunity granted unto all those that still have the breath of life in them. The Bible does say that a living dog always exceeds a dead lion, because as for the grave, there is no remembrance of them anymore. Those that are dead cannot do anything for the living anymore. But those that are alive, despite your state, despite your circumstance, despite your upbringing or your origin, there is always within the human psyche and spirit the potential to make something out of nothing. And that is the great creative force that Elohim has granted unto all of us, so that all of us can change our destinies. And Elohim has made it so that mankind will always be reminded of the fact that they can change. And therefore, Elohim has spoken and said, Behold, how I will send my servants, waking up early in the morning, sending them. And I will send them with a positive message. And the message is that unto all those who will, let them come, and Elohim will restore you. So we are extremely grateful unto this great and benevolent spirit, Elohim, that He has shown unto us compassion, in that He has not cut off our days, He has not cut short our days, but He has allowed us to live. And even though some of us may go through lives with a broken heart for a season, even though some of us may go through life with some ailments and physical discomfort in the body, even though some of us may go through life sometimes with empty pockets, where you are struggling day by day just to get ahead, even though some of us are struggling with jobs and whatsoever, and even though some of us are struggling even spiritually, sometimes you are up and sometimes you are down. As long as you are alive, you ought to consider this as part of the beautiful struggle, which is called life. For times and seasons and chance happens to us all. And it is your mindset in the midst of the storm. It is your mindset in the midst of glory. It is your mindset in the midst of pain that determines your character. And whilst you are going through these things, just take a mental note and know that the one who is in control, He is in control. And even though it may seem as if for a season, He acts as if He's not seeing you going through the waves of challenges, the waves of difficulties whatsoever, just know and rest assured that as you can walk down the street and you can look up to the sky, and as long as you see that the ordinances of heaven are still intact, and you can see the sun rising and the moon shining, and you can feel the wind blowing, it is an indication that the order of things are still intact. So therefore, brothers and sisters, take heart, take your time, be hopeful, and rest assured that Elohim will always be in control. So having said that, because of time, we apologize for the late start, but sometimes through the issues of men and sometimes the issues of technology, things happen. So we apologize once again. We will try to fill the 2 hours. Otherwise, we won't get through the subject matter. So bear with us, please, and keep us forever in your prayers every time we start, because it is not easy. So as with regards to today's topic, as with regards to today's topic, it is called the power of the tongue. So we will continue with the theme that we actually started with last week, the power of the tongue. But this time we will look at the perspective from the male or from the man. Yeah. So starting with our introduction.
For today's lesson. For today's lesson, we will look at the power of spoken words and its impact on our lives and those around us. If one studies the word carefully, it is clear that Elohim made all things by the power of his spoken word. So also, man who is made in his image creates his own reality by the things he speaks. It is therefore important to understand the basis of this principle and how to apply it to our advantage. As with all things that pertain to the principle of life, rather you know it or are ignorant of it, these principles are always at work. So please pay attention and begin to take control of your destiny going forward.
Exactly. So basically, as we said during the intro, the possibilities within men is unending. The possibilities within you is unending. Therefore, do not let someone just speak down on you, and especially don't speak down on yourself, because there is a creative force within you which you speak into existence, and so things begin to take shape. And the funny thing about this very concept is, even those that study what they call mysticism and the Eastern religions and stuff, they know the same principle. They just coin it differently. Some call it, sometimes they like to call it the secret, and others call it the power of manifestation. And all these things is correct on the left side and on the right side. Because if you look at the great I am, the unending spirit, you will see that the greatest feat and his greatest power is in his speech. So when you say and you read the Bible and you see Elohim saying, let there be, that is his power. Let there be. Simply by speaking, things begin to move. And it is the same as with us. There is nothing that you have ever done or achieved or accomplished that did not first was not first processed in your mind. You had to think of it first. You had to imagine it first, and then you had to believe it and speak it, and then slowly but surely you would see that it seems as if all of the creative forces of the world, of the spirit, begin to guide you towards a certain outcome which you have projected or which you have thought of or which you have imagined. And that is why you oftentimes see that the things which men first thought to be, let's say, impossible or difficult, slowly and surely you will see that if you put all your mind, all your effort, all your energy into something, you will see that you will get closer and closer and closer and closer to your, let's say, target or to your objective. So the very table of content which we will deal with today is as following.
We will look at a symbolic interpretation of the tongue or speaking. We'll look at the power of the tongue. Confessions 101. We'll look at the words of a father. We'll look at Vows 101, the curious case of wedding vows, the spoken words of false prophets, and then the tongue of the messenger or the true messenger. And then we'll have a conclusion.
Plain and simple. So because of time, the symbolic interpretation of the tongue and of speaking.
I believe Revelation 19.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Verse 11, and I saw heaven opened,
And behold,
a
I
white,
saw an open heaven, and behold, a white horse.
and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he does judge and make war. And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yah. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule over them with a rod of iron, and he treaded down the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of El Shaddai.
So here you are seeing the coming of the great king, the one who will end it all, the one who the nations fear and hate and want to imitate. But he is coming. This one is something you cannot prevent. And as he's coming, he will do many things that will shake the heavens and this earth. But you will see that what makes him different is they say that instead of words coming out of his mouth, swords come out of his mouth, right? And what you have to understand when it comes to swords, a sword is something that either cuts or abolishes or stabs, right? So that is one of the symbolic interpretation when we're looking at the tongue or when we're looking at speaking. So Hebrews 4:12.
For the word of Yah is quick and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart.
Isaiah 58.
Cry aloud and spare not. Lift up thy voice like a trumpet and shew my people.
So I've written down in gold, the act of
speaking, or the tongue, can be likened to a sword, which is a tool to cut, abolish, or penetrate. Similarly, speaking can be likened to a trumpet, which is a tool to announce or declare something. The word preach means primarily to deliver a sermon. The word sermon comes from a Latin term meaning a stab or a thrust, as in the heart or mind of the listener.
Acts 2:37.
Now when they heard this, they were pricked in their heart, and said unto Cephas and to the rest of the apostles, Men and brethren, what shall we do?
So what you have to understand, I'm bringing all these things together as a foundation, just for you to know that all of us, what you have in your mouth, your tongue, can be likened to a trumpet, and it can be likened to a sword. And with your tongue, you'll be able to announce certain things to people, and you announcing certain things to people can sometimes be likened unto a sword being stabbed through. So with your words, you'll be able to cut through relationships. With your words, you'll be able to cut through limitations you've placed for yourself. With your words, you will be able to speak things into existence, and they are. So that is something that you have to keep in mind. That is the same reason why you see the Messiah, when he's coming, they say out of his mouth cometh forth swords, meaning when he will come to cut, he will come to abolish, he will come to announce, he will come to declare things that have never been before. So that is the same thing as with your tongue and with your word. With your tongue, whenever you begin to speak something, know that you are either cutting or you are stabbing or you are affecting change. You are causing something, and the effects can be either detrimental or they can be peaceful. But just understand that your tongue, your words are tools, and through it you are able to change things. That's what we have to keep in our mind as we are continuing. So the next slide, the very power of the tongue. John 6:63.
It is the spirit that quickens. The flesh profited nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life.
Exactly. So the very words that we speak, when you sometimes take your time to speak to someone, whenever you are speaking to someone, you are either bringing life to a person's soul or mind, or you are either bringing death to a person's soul or mind. But the very foundation and basic of life as it is, it always will come from the words that are being spoken. So Proverbs 18:21.
Death and life
are
in the power of the tongue,
and they that love it,
shall eat the fruit thereof.
and this it that it says they that love it, they are referring to either death and life. So if you love death, through your tongue you will eat the fruit thereof, or you will pronounce the fruit thereof. If you love life, through the tongue you will pronounce the fruit thereof. That is why I think there is a verse in the Bible that speaks of receive the fruit of our lips. Now, these fruits of our lips that the psalmist speaks of, these are either fruits of death or fruits of life, depending on where you are with your mindset, with your being, whatsoever concerns you. So, what this basically forces us to think of and realize is every time I stand to open my mouth, am I bringing life into a situation or am I bringing death into a situation? Every time you stand trial to speak, you must understand that your words, they are heavy, as we would like to say. Your words, they carry effects. I think it was Elohim who spoke in the book of Isaiah, and he said, I have declared or I have sent forth my word, and it will not return unto me void. I have sent forth my words, and it will not return unto me void until it has accomplished what I have performed it to do. So these are things that you must keep in mind when you are going through your own personal life, whatsoever. Be very mindful of, first, the things you say to yourself. And sometimes we think that words simply mean, yeah, every time I speak. But many of us know, especially if you are someone that lives by yourself, sometimes you can go through days and you haven't opened your mouth physically. I remember when I was living by myself or when I was living with my brother, sometimes I would be in my room and you would realize that, hey, it's been like maybe 2 days. I haven't physically opened my mouth. It's crazy. You haven't spoken to a human being. So your mouth is closed for days. But that does not mean that you are not speaking to yourself. So when we're talking about words or speaking, it's not simply you opening your mouth. It's the conversation that you have within, the inner dialogue. What are the type of conversations that you have within you? Are you the type of person that speaks life? You project life. Your thoughts are life. Or are you the type of person that you speak death? You think death. Everything around you is death, 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 negative, 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 always critical, negative. Because you have to understand that both death and life are within you. This is something we must keep in our minds. And let's take the example of the great man himself. Genesis 1, verse 3.
And Elohim said,
Now listen, and Elohim spoke, and he said,
let there be light.
and there was light. Verse 26.
And Elohim said, let us make man in our image,
After
our likeness,
and let them have
dominion.
So Elohim
created man in his own image.
In the image
of Elohim created he him.
Male and female
created he them.
Mm-hmm. So, and out of the ground,
Yah Elohim formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them.
And whatsoever Adam
called every living creature,
that was the name
thereof.
That's what you have to understand. This is what we call the right of inheritance. The same thing Elohim did. Through his spoken words, he established things and he established orders and he decreed, and it was so. The same power was invested and embedded in man whom he created. So to establish that same principle and law, Elohim tested Adam and said, I will bring forth all the animals and let them come to you, and I will give you the right to name them. Because the thing with naming, you only name what you control. The fact that you name something means you own it. Otherwise, you would not have the power to name it. It's the same as with you. There is no one here, unless you are a rebel or you had some divine insight, that is walking that named himself. You were named by your parents, and you don't understand what that principle means. The fact that they named you means that they have power over you. It's the same as with Elohim. He made the animals come, and he said, name them whatsoever you would like, and the name you will give them, it shall be so. So it means that within the power of the tongue, you have the ability to impose your will, your might on things. And that power that Elohim himself has, because he imposes his will over all things created by the power of his spoken word, that same power he had invested in us. And you see that in the life of Adam as well. And then to confirm it, Psalms 82.
From 1. Elohim stands in the congregation of mighty ones. He judgeth among the Elohim or rulers. How long will ye judge unjustly and accept the persons of the wicked? Selah. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course.
Now, this is key, this verse. He's simply telling you in that short paragraph, the lamentable state of mankind, where it was supposed to be so that Elohim was supposed to walk in the midst of judges. Mankind, when he made us in our original estate, we were the judges of the earth. But he's saying now that the very foundations are out of course, meaning where they were supposed to be judges, they are now walking around like men. Continue reading.
I have said,
But I have said,
ye are Elohim, and all of you are the children of the Most High,
but ye
shall die like men
and fall
like one of the princes.
That is the lamentable state. So I've written down in gold, mankind
is the only species on earth that has the ability to create their own reality. With the innate ability we have inherited from Elohim, we can speak things into motion and work towards achieving it. Or we can destroy things we do not like. It's all up to you and the wisdom you have in you.
Exactly. So whether you will destroy or you will establish or build, it depends on the wisdom you have within you. But whether you destroy or build or you are ignorant of it, this power that you have within you is one of what we call the principles of life. You knowing it or not knowing it will not negate the fact that this is an established order. It always works. It always works. So it would be in your advantage to know this principle of life and let it begin to work for you. Even if you have nothing, speak as if you have something. Even if you're not feeling it, speak yourself into it. Even when you are going through things, do not let words or do not impose negative words on yourself because they will become shackles. Say, hey, today I may not have it, but I will find a way. Say, hey, today I'm not feeling it, but I will not stay in this state forever. I will feel it. Speak things as you want them to be. That is one of the very first things that you must begin to realize, because that is the very principle of this life. And that is what other people call force of attraction, law of whatsoever name they want to call it. But the Bible calls it like the deep calls to the deep. So you are the one who attracts things, who speaks things into being. And you must understand it, because if you understand it, it will work for you. And it can work for you on a positive note or on a negative note. But just know that you as a human being, as a child of Elohim, as a human being born, you are not weak, but you have power within you, and it starts with your tongue. You must understand this. So we are continuing because of time. Now then, Confessions 101. And the metric 101 is it's a figure of speech that they use often. And 101 simply means basis or principle. So just consider this as one of the principles of confessions. Yeah. So Proverbs
18 from 21, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruits.
This is the basic. But if we take it from another angle, what is meant by that? Matthew 12:36.
But I say unto you that every idle word that man shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment.
So now it begins to get very, very interesting. Proverbs said death and life are in the tongue, and those who love the fruit thereof, of either death or life, they will eat of it. Now the Messiah says that every idle word that ye shall speak, they shall give an account in the day of judgment. For by thy words
thou shalt be justified,
and by thy words
thou shalt be condemned.
It means that when you stand trial for something, it is your argument on a particular situation that will either condemn you or it will cause you to go free. Right? So the book of Sirach 21 from 1, it says, my son,
hast thou sinned?
In the case of you transgressing, in the case of you breaking the law,
do so no more.
Do your best to stop it.
But ask pardon from thy former sins.
But ask pardon. Ask forgiveness for your past mistakes.
When the ungodly curses Satan.
However, when the ungodly, because when you are in a state of sinning, you are in trespass. At that moment, you are Satan, meaning you are in an adversary of the righteousness of Elohim. So you are ungodly. And now he's saying, but when the ungodly, or when someone who's in a state of sin,
cursed Satan,
when he all of a sudden begins to curse Satan,
he cursed his own soul.
You are cursing your own soul. What does this mean? 1 John 1, I think 8.
If we say we have no sin.
Listen, if in your confession you say you have no sin,
we deceive ourselves.
We are deceiving our very selves.
And the truth is not in us.
And the truth is not in us.
If we confess our sins.
However, if we confess our sins,
he is faithful and just.
He will be faithful and very just.
To forgive us our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. If we say we have not sinned, we make him a liar and his word is not in us.
So what this simply means is, because you may wonder, like, how can you confess and then claim to not have sinned? Many people do this, but they are not aware of the fact that they do this. How do they do that? They do that by adding Satan as one of the culprits in their confession. You have made a mistake. You did something wrong. And it was in transgression with the law of Elohim. Now you come before him and you are confessing. But in your confession, you are pulling down Satan. You are dragging him through the mud. Like, Elohim, I don't know what came over me. The devil is a liar. So in your confession, you are bringing in Satan. Yeah, Elohim, it was never my intention, but Satan seduced me. You are bringing in Satan in your confession, and you are blaming Satan for your mistakes. And the moment you start doing that, you are now cursing Satan whilst you are ungodly. So the Bible is saying you are cursing your own soul. Why? You are cursing your soul because those who bring in Satan when confessing, they have not received the pardon or the forgiveness of sin. Because you can only receive the forgiveness of sin when you stand before Elohim and you take the full blame. You take the 100% blame. You take the 100% responsibility over your mistakes. And you say, just like the Bible said, that's why David said, so that thou may be justified when thou speakest. So you begin to tell Elohim, Elohim, you were right when you warned me. You were right when you told us not to enter into the way of the wicked. You were right when you told us not to put a wicked thing before our eyes. You were right when you told us that, son, when sinners entice thee, consent with them not. Everything you warned me, I refuse to listen. And now I am bearing the consequences of my own stupidity. And now I've come and I want to say, I am sorry. It was 100% on me. If that is how you are confessing, then know that Elohim said, I will not refuse a broken heart. So when you are confessing like that, you are touching the heart of Elohim. And you begin to tell him, Elohim, it is because of me that you shall be known as the merciful one. It is because of people like me that you shall be known as the Elohim who forgives sin. Because if you don't forgive, who shall forgive? If that is how you confess, it's different. Elohim will hear you. But the moment you inject Satan in the conversation, that's why I put this picture. You are the small Negro boy, wounded by the eyes, and Elohim is the consuming lion. And you stand before this lion and you want to tell Elohim about a hyena. Hey, Satan seduced me. He will slaughter you. So don't confess like that. That is one. The second, 1 John 8. No, I think we read 1 John. 1 Corinthians 14 now.
1 Corinthians 14 from verse 13.
Read.
Wherefore let him that speaks in an unknown tongue pray that he may interpret.
This is another one. Read.
Wherefore let him that speaks in an unknown tongue pray that he may interpret. For if I pray in an unknown tongue, my spirit prayeth, but my understanding is unfruitful.
This is sad, and I just left one verse there because tongues. One verse is enough. So I've given the basic rules when it comes to confessing. So this 1 Corinthians 14, it has to deal with just keep these two things in mind and you will get far. So basic rules when confessing. One is,
do not blame any devil or spirit for your actions. Just like in court, when you stand trial for murder charge for drunk driving, you can't blame the alcohol. Even though alcohol is a spirit, no one forced you to drink.
Have you ever seen someone stand trial? You smoked ganja or you drank alcohol and you entered into an auto vehicle and you killed someone whilst drunk driving. And now you stand trial and you tell the judge, hey, Mr. Judge, blame it on the alcohol. Have you seen that? Have you seen that? You tell the judge, hey, I'm a good person. You tell the judge, I pay my taxes, I work, I'm a good person. But it just so happened to be that Friday after work, we went for a meeting and I drank Johnny Walker and I was drunk. And when I wanted to go home, unfortunately, I killed someone. But it wasn't me, it was the alcohol. So if let's say you stand trial and that is your defense, will you think that the judge will say, you're right, I've looked at your track record and it is impeccable, even though that person died? It's obviously not your mistake, it's because of the alcohol, so you can just go. Have you ever seen that before? But that is what we try to do. You make a mistake and then you blame the devil. But just like, that's what the Bible says, as it is above, so it is below. So just like there is no judge on this earth that will let you go free, he will sentence you to a life prison because you have killed someone. And he will not even speak of alcohol because you decided to drink alcohol. It is the same as when you make a mistake and you come before Elohim and you interject and you bring in Satan into the conversation. You will be punished. Elohim will not even mention Satan's name because Satan is a principle of life. That's what you must understand. Just like alcohol is a principle of life. You drink alcohol, you get drunk. You cannot blame the alcohol for doing its job. You cannot blame the accuser of the brethren or the seducer for seducing. It's a principle of life. It is up to you and your maturity to manage this principle that is forever with us. That is one. The second,
do not speak in your so-called tongue.
Please, when you are confessing, do not kabroshka shandaba. Do not speak in tongues
when confessing, since your mind is unfruitful.
Because your very Bible and Paul, who you love, is telling you that when you are speaking in this so-called tongue of yours, your mind
is unfruitful. So since your mind is unfruitful, how do you even know you are confessing at the moment?
How do you even know that at that moment you are confessing?
When confessing, you must take your time, think of the offense, and begin to speak intelligently and plead with wisdom and humility for another chance.
That's it. So many people, they have never confessed before in their lives. Because every time it was time for confession time, the spirit in them was prompted and they began to speak in tongues whilst confessing. So you are confessing in tongues. And people think like, yeah, it means it's the groaning of the spirit. We have these artists. Tali always makes fun of me when I listen to music of people weeping, crying. That's the music I like, right? But sometimes within those segments and songs, you hear people weeping in tongues, right? And they're crying, I should never, I could never. So just because you are weeping in your so-called tongue, you're not doing anything. It's not confessing. It's just emotion. It's emotion. So when it comes to your confession, to my Holy Ghost-filled Christians, if you confess speaking in tongues, you haven't confessed. You haven't confessed. It's not confessing. So if you do these things, just know that you haven't confessed before. So take these two principles with you and it will take you far. And the reason why it is linked with the power of the tongue is the two things that you do here. You do it with your mouth. You confess with your mouth. So that's why I placed it on the Confession 101. So if there are no further questions, we can continue. No question? Plain and simple. So now, the words of a father, right? Genesis 49:1.
And Jacob called unto his sons.
Remember that we spoke in the beginning how you shape your own destiny by reason of the words you speak. That is if you are a man and you stand by yourself. Even if you are a woman and you stand by yourself, you create your own destiny. But now we are moving into another sphere where you become a responsible person and you have children. So now let's look at the words of a father. How you as a father, you as a brother, you as a person in authority, what you speak will begin to impact other people. What you speak will begin to impact other people. And the greatest bond, for example, and where the areas where this works with immediate effect is when it comes to the position of a father towards his children. So the example that we take will be from Genesis 41, and it says, and Jacob called
unto his sons
and said,
gather yourselves together,
that I
may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days.
that I may tell you what will happen to you. Why? Because I am your father. Right? So he speaks and he said, gather yourselves
together
and
hear,
listen,
ye sons of Jacob,
and hearken
unto Israel your father.
So he begins to speak and he touches Reuben. He says, Reuben,
thou art my firstborn,
you are my firstborn,
my might,
you are my strength,
and the beginning of my strength,
and you are the beginning of my vigor,
the excellency of dignity.
And because you are the beginning of my power, from a natural perspective and from the normal order of things, you are excellent.
And the excellency of power, unstable as water,
However, there is a character flaw within you. You are unstable.
as water. Thou shalt not excel.
And because of this, you will not excel.
Because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, then defilest thou it. He went up to my couch.
This is the judgment and the pronunciation that a father spoke to his son. And if you study the life of Reuben carefully, you will see that he never received the birthright, but he was the firstborn. So naturally, he was supposed to receive the birthright. But when Jacob spoke and said this, the birthright was taken from him. That is why he also began the statement and said, "Thou art the son of my strength. You ought to have been excellent. However, you will not excel." So he took away the birthright from Reuben, and it was never his. Let's continue. And then he went to Simeon.
Simeon and Levi are brethren. Instruments of cruelty are in their habitations.
Meaning they are very aggressive people.
Cursed be their anger.
So he's telling them, what will keep you down, Simeon and Levi, is your anger.
For it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob,
And scatter them
in Israel.
That is one of the reasons why you see that the tribe of Levi had no place. They were scattered all over. It had nothing to do with the priesthood per se. No, it had to do with what Jacob said. So that's why you will see that when in the book of Joshua, when the tribes of all the tribes are getting their place, Levi had no place to call home. He was scattered all over the tribes. It has to do with what Jacob said here. He said, "I will spread you all over." So
And
Judah now.
Thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet
Until Shiloh
come.
So you see, he blessed Judah with the with the rule of kings, and that's why you see the Messiah coming from the tribe of Judah. So the father is pronouncing blessings and curses, and what he has pronounced, if you begin to study the lives of the children in the Bible, you see all these things are coming to pass. The next example is that of Joseph.
Joseph is a fruitful bow, even a fruitful bow by a well, whose branches run over the wall. The blessings of thy father have prevailed above the blessings of my progenitors.
Now listen very closely. He's telling Joseph, as for you, the blessings of thy father
have prevailed.
Meaning the blessings, I am your father. The blessings that I have received are bigger than those of my fathers.
Unto the utmost bound of the everlasting hills. They shall be on the head of Joseph.
You see? And he's saying, all my blessings, they will be on your head. It simply means you shall receive the birthright. That is what that means. He literally took the birthright from Reuben and he gave it unto Joseph.
And on the crown of the head of him that was separate from his brethren.
That is the very same reason why you see that Israel produced two lines of kings. They came from Judah, but they also came from Ephraim, because Ephraim and Manasseh were the children of Joseph. So the birthright that was taken from Reuben came and went down and fell on the head of Ephraim and Manasseh. That is why you see the southern kingdom was Judah, the northern kingdom was always Ephraim and Manasseh, because the birthright was taken from Reuben and given to Joseph. That's the blessing. That's what the blessing of a father can do. So this was just a simple example. And if we then take it into our own reality, this is not something we will take and discuss very long. But what your father says, the utterances of a father over a child's life is very critical. It is very critical. And just like last week, the brother also spoke about the mothers. What your parents say over you is very critical. That's why if you are aware of the fact that you have troubled your parents, you have really troubled your parents, and let's say you get into the knowledge and you get into the wisdom, try to make sure that, especially before you marry, even on the day before you leave your house, make sure you take a gift. You bring it to your parents, you kneel before them, you tell them, I'm about to leave the house. I would like to give you something. May you please bless me before I go. It is something that is very small, but you don't understand the impact thereof. That's why we in our Bantu culture, unless your parents bless the marriage is not blessed. The Son of Man can jump up and down. Elohim does not recognize a marriage that is not blessed by the parents. And you wonder why that is. It's because they are the ones that possess you. And now you're about to leave their domain. They will give you away. They must say, we release you. In our Bantu culture, these principles are intact. So no matter the fact that maybe your father was around, or maybe your mother was not around, or they left you, the fact that they are your father and they are your mother, it means that what they say will have a hold over you. So make sure you always treat them well, even though they may be wicked in your eyes. It is key. It is key. Always treat them well. And if there is nothing positive to say, fine, but make sure you don't say anything negative. Make sure you don't say anything negative. This is key. And with time, when time passes and stuff, you visit them, you speak to them, you give them something, even though it is small, because you want them to be happy. If they are happy when they think of you, if they are happy when they hear you, it adds life to you without you knowing it. And if you have a very wise father, occasionally he will just tell you, hey, my son or my daughter, you are blessed. You are blessed. These are things that you have to enforce or incite or promote this positive speech from your parents. But if you have parents that always tell you, yay, you had seen, you will see, you this, it's not good. But you have to ask yourself, are my parents really monsters, or what have I done that can anger them so much to the point where they start saying this? You must think of these things. That's why it is wise. Do not anger your parents. Do not anger your parents. You know, fun. Hey, your mother, sometimes she's do like us. In our mind, we speak to our mothers, but we know, fun. Alas, our mothers, says Allah, they are not 100%. So when you speak to them as if you're speaking to a child. Even though it's your mother, van okay, weet je, is goed. It's okay. Leave them. Leave them. The same with your father. Sometimes you speak to them, you're like, Emma, his mind is gone now. There is no logic in the madness of this guy. But you just leave him, and then you remember the Bible says, do not despise, I think it was, is it Sirach? He said, do not despise your elders or your parents when they are old. Don't despise them because now they are old and they have become senile in their thinking. Don't despise them. You must still honor them. Because when you were a baby and you were helpless, they helped you. But now that you are strong, now that your mind is capable, and now that you are smarter than them, all of a sudden you want to treat them like rubbish? This ought not to be the case, because the words of a father, the words of a mother, they carry power. as you saw in the lives of the children of Israel. Now we are continuing. Now the spoken words over the children. I touched it a bit, but here's another example which we all know. Genesis 35:16. And they journeyed
from Bethel, and there was but a little way to come to Ephrath. And Rachel travailed, and she had hard labor. And it came to pass, when she was in hard labor, that the midwife said unto her, Fear not, thou shalt have this son also. And it came to pass, as her soul was in departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni, but his father called him Benjamin.
So this is another thing, because we're trying to reach certain nuances here. If there is really someone you ought not to anger when it comes to father or mother, especially the fathers, because they are your final line of defense, especially the fathers, the silent ones in the house, right? Because we are living in days now where the fathers get the least respect. You are in your house and your mother's always the one talking and the father's always sighing. He's always quiet. And you see your father's in the house and it's as if everyone in the house hates the father and everyone loves mama. It's so crazy. And the father's the one, he's suffering in silence. He's suffering in silence. He can't even sit on his own couch in his own house because he's afraid the wife will yell. Or so. And you look at your father, sometimes you're like, wow, this is sad. What happened? But you don't know that he's still the one responsible for you guys. Because if he only says something, it can hit you. So in the case of Jacob, the mother, because of bitterness, cursed the son. But because the father's voice is over that of the mother, the father was able to overrule certain things in the life of Benjamin. So where Benjamin ought to have suffered, the father spoke a blessing over him, and it was fine with him. So be very careful when it comes to this person which we call Dada. So Hebrews 7:7. And without all
contradiction,
the less
is blessed of the better.
Even though you are more handsome, you are richer, you have more money, you are smarter, in Elohim's eyes, you are always the lesser, and your parents are always the greater. That is a principle that will never change. It will never change. Without contradiction, the less is blessed
of the better.
So the Bible says, without any, it is not saying only if they believe in Elohim. It's not saying only if they have been good to you. It's not saying only if they are smart or went to school. Only if even your parents can believe in Buddha. Your father can be a worshiper of Shiva, and he can still bless you or curse you. Because it has nothing to do with Elohim anymore. That is one of the established laws which Elohim, because when he establishes a law, he will not break it. It will either work for you or against you. It's one of the established laws. That's why, especially with us Africans, you see, it is very difficult for us to speak against our parents. And I remember sometimes when you're with your maybe Antillians or Surinaamse vrienden and stuff, they find it sometimes very strange, fun. What's the reason that you don't speak back to your mother? Or why don't you speak back to your father? And with us Africans, it's like, nee. So we have been trained naturally for, hey, my moeder praat, my father praat, I won't speak back. It's embedded in our culture because we are the people of the book, so we know these things. But some of our brothers and sisters, due to interferences in culture and stuff, they forgot this principle. But it is intact, because without contradiction, the less is always blessed by the greater. So Corinthians 13:3.
There's one question about the previous part about Benjamin, Benoni and Benjamin. And the question is, how can one overrule the negative words spoken by your parents during birth? So without any cause from your side, or spoken during pregnancy, for example.
We will reach that when we hit the point of the tongue of the messenger, because they have a certain fatherhood principle that can also be linked to them, so that they can be your way out in case of very unreasonable parents that just curse you because it through bitterness and stuff, it can happen, right? So I think I will touch it then because of time. Yeah,
Great.
Good question. So Exodus 20:12, honor thy
1 Corinthians 11 verse 3.
Oh,
We
yeah.
read that.
Mhm.
But I would have you know that the head of every man is the Messiah,
So the Messiah is the boss of the man,
And-
meaning whatever he says has a direct impact on the man.
and the head of the woman is the man.
And the head of the woman is the man. So it is the Messiah, then it is the man, then it is the woman.
And the head of the Messiah is Yah.
And the head of the Messiah is Yah. So that is a line of succession, and that is a line of power. Elohim is above all. What he says, it touches us all. Then comes the Messiah. What he says, it touches the man and the woman. Then comes the man. What the man says, it touches the woman and the children. Then comes the woman. What the woman says, it touches the children. Then comes the children. And what they say, it touches only themselves. That is how it works. So, Jeremiah 35 verse 1, because of time.
The word which came unto Jeremiah from Yah, saying, Go unto the house of the Rechabites and speak unto them, and bring them into the house of Yah, into one of the chambers, and give them wine to drink. But they said, We will drink no wine. For Jonadab, the son of Rechab, our father, commanded us, saying, Ye shall drink no wine, neither ye nor your sons forever. Thus have we obeyed the voice of Jonadab, the son of Rechab, our father, in all that he had charged us, to drink no wine all our days, we, our wives, our sons, nor our daughters.
Now, what you have to understand about the Rechabites is that they knew not Elohim. They were a Bedouin tribe. They worshiped the moon god Allah. They knew not Elohim. They had nothing to do with Elohim. However, their father gave them a law and they kept it. And Elohim looked at them and they said, These men are honorable. So he sent the prophet to them.
And Jeremiah said unto the house of the Rechabites, Thus saith Yah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, because ye have obeyed the commandment of Jonadab your father,
Listen.
and kept all his precepts, and done according unto all that he has commanded you. Therefore, thus saith Yah of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, Jonadab the son of Rechab shall not want a man to stand before me forever.
So simply because of their obedience to their father, where the children of Israel were disobedient to their father Elohim, Elohim was so touched by the obedience of the Rechabites that he said, even though you are not my people, going forward, I will make sure that in every generation there shall be at least one representative of the Rechabites in my court. That's the mercy Elohim showed them, simply out of obedience to your father. Now here comes the small caveat, because you must always use intelligence here. Look at the conditions the father gave to the children. He said, don't drink and don't settle in this place by building houses. These things fell within the laws of Elohim. None of the things that the father of the Rechabites commanded the Rechabites was in direct transgression with the laws of Elohim. Therefore, Elohim found it to be honorable. The same as with you. Your father is your head. Your father can tell you to do something. If it does not meddle with the laws of Elohim, because he's your father, do it. Do it. However, let's say your father tells you, hey, because you are my son, I'm your head. Here's 20 euros. Go to the supermarket and buy Heineken for me. In that case, you are excused when you say, pa, ik hou van je, maar ik ga geen bier voor je halen. It stands against my principles. That is something else. And Elohim will recommend you for it. And if your father is sound-minded, he won't curse you because of that. But even if he does, because you stood for your spiritual father, Elohim, that curse will not hit you. That is the wisdom you must apply. So don't go around following your parents as a headless chicken. Because following your parents as a headless chicken can also cause you troubles. Follow them as long as it is not in opposition to the laws of Elohim. And if they tell you to do something that is against the laws of Elohim, say no, but there is a kind way to say it. With wisdom, intelligence, and love. That's the difference. Yeah? So, because of time, let's continue. Now, vows. There's no other question with regards to that, right? Now, vows 101.
Numbers chapter 30, verse 2.
If a man
Vow a vow unto Yah, or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceeded out of his mouth.
this vows thing. So Deuteronomy 23.
When thou shalt vow a vow unto Yah thy Elohim, thou shalt not slack to pay it. For Yah thy Elohim will surely require it of thee, and it would be sin in thee. But if thou shalt forbear to vow, it shall be no sin in thee. That which is gone out of thy lips thou shalt keep and perform, even a free will offering, according as thou hast vowed unto Yah thy Elohim, which thou hast promised with thy mouth.
Those are the basic verses. So, what then is a vow?
A vow is a promise
Listen.
made by a man.
A vow is a promise made by a man
Or a woman
with the hope
to receive Elohim's assistance or help
in return.
to give something back to Elohim.
That is the basic of it. A vow or a gelofte is a promise made by a man or a woman with the hope, not the assurance. The words are selected carefully. Not with the assurance, with the hope. And the Bible says, hope make it not ashamed, but sometimes it make it ashamed. So with the hope to receive Elohim's assistance or help in return to give something back to Elohim. It may involve
the giving away of your belongings, like money or any kind of material. But
so
it
the
can
Hebrews usually gave land or animals, but it can
also involve the giving away of something you find pleasurable, like wine, food, sex, or any other thing your soul delights in for a period of time.
That's it. For a period of time. This vow
is based on terms and conditions, and these terms and conditions are binding.
Meaning you are bound by them. Just like a
Meaning-
contract. If you go outside, you have a telephone and you want to have a internet. You go to T-Mobile or you go to Vodafone. You go there. No one forced you. You went there. You say, I want this. They say, fine. You can have this for this amount. This is the agreement. This is the paper. Please sign it. The moment you sign it, you are bound for the time determined on the contract. So if you sleep and you wake up and you are like, T-Mobile, I made a mistake. They were like, sir, we understand, but we have a contract. and you are bound to the contract for the time specified there. So if you are bound on the contract for 2 years, guess what? Whether you use the data or you don't use the data, whether you are broke or you're not broke, whether you broke a leg or you didn't break a leg, every end of the month, Vodafone will demand money from you. There is no condition. There is no, in the case of no, it's binding. As it is with Vodafone, so it is with vows. If you vow to the ancient one, you're like, hey, ancient one, and you vow, you are a man or a woman, and you vow it, you are vowed. Right? So read the following passage, please.
Please note that the fact that you vow something to Elohim does not mean that Elohim will honor.
No, you were with this vow is based on terms and conditions, and these terms and conditions are binding. That's where you were.
Meaning, once you make a vow, your soul is bound to that vow to perform it, and none can break you from it if you are a man.
That's it. That's what it means with that's why Numbers 32 says, if a man vow a vow unto Yah or swear an oath to bind his soul, that's what it is. You bind your soul with a promise. So then I wrote down the final passage. Please note
that the fact that you vow something to Elohim does not mean that Elohim will honor or agree on your vow.
That is the danger. Read.
This makes making a vow very dangerous. If you have a certain relationship with Elohim, he will let you know that he has heard your vow and accepted it. However, he may also say nothing. In that case, you still have to perform the vow, since no one forced you to make a vow but yourself. Be therefore very careful, as only matured people should do this, and no novice or volatile person.
So if you are a volatile person, or as Shalom likes to say, giddy giddy, all right? If you have a giddy-giddious tendency, do not make vows. If you just entered into the faith, do not make vows. If you are the type of person, today your mood is this, tomorrow your mood is this, do not make vows. If you are under stress, do not make vows. If you are in panic, do not make vows. If you are very happy, do not make vows. If you are very sad, do not make vows. In any state you are that is out of the ordinary, do not make vows. Make vows when you are sound. And even then, be careful not to make vows. So read.
On a side note, however, vows once accepted and agreed by Elohim turn into covenants, and covenants grants one the ability to invoke the hand of the Almighty, since he is a covenant-keeping Elohim. Due to this reason, Elohim is very, very, very careful not to enter into covenants with mankind, because he will be bound by his word to keep his part.
Exactly. That is the danger. So a vow is a vow when it's especially only on one side. You vow, no a confirmation, nothing. You are still bound by it. But no one in the heavens is bound by you. You did it by yourself. The moment that he comes back to you, if you are that type of person, and he confirms it with you, as he did with Jacob, Moses, and all of them, it becomes a covenant. That is the next stage. A covenant is an agreement between both two parties based on terms and conditions. When it becomes a covenant, it now gives you access. It now gives you access. That is why you will see, because sometimes you wonder, like, hey, what's the day that Abraham could call Elohim and Elohim would... They had a covenant. So it means when Abraham had his part to play, and guess what? Elohim had his part to play. So when you read the book of Jeremiah, Elohim begins to say, when you are scattered and you are dying, you rebellious children, unfortunately for me, I have a covenant with you. So because of the covenant, I will come and I will restore you. But don't think I've done it for you. I did it for my name, because I established a covenant with your fathers. That's the difference. And because of that, Elohim is very careful with your vows. He would rather not enter into covenant with men like that, because the moment he does, he is also bound. And that is why a vow is so dangerous. You pronounce it, you are bound by it. So don't just do it, because it can mess you up. So that is vows. We are continuing. The next one now, some examples. The Nazarite vow, Numbers 6 and 2.
Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when either man or woman shall separate themselves to vow a vow of a Nazarite, to separate themselves unto Yah, he shall separate himself from wine and strong drink, and shall drink no vinegar of wine or vinegar of strong drink. Neither shall he drink any liquor of grapes, nor eat moist grapes or dried. All the days of his separation shall he eat nothing that is made of the vine tree, from the kernels even to the husk. All the days of the vow of his separation there shall no razor come upon his head, until the days be fulfilled, in the which he separated himself unto Yah. He shall be set apart, and shall let the locks of the hair of his head grow. All the days that he separated himself unto Yah, he shall come at no dead body.
So this one needs no explanation, plain and simple. This is the example of a vow. You can do this vow in 2023 in Babylon. So don't even think of this vow. You can do it. But this was just an example of how men entered into vows with Elohim. The law of the Nazarite, it is applicable to both men and women. The second one, the vow of Jacob.
Genesis 28 verse 20. And Jacob vowed a vow, saying, if Elohim will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall Yah be my Elohim, and his stone which I have set for a pillar shall be Elohim's house. And of all that thou shalt give me, I will surely give the tenth unto thee.
You see how it is? You see how it works? This is an example of Jacob, our father. And Jacob vowed a vow. And he started with if Elohim. So he's hoping, he's hoping if Elohim will do this, and will do this, and will do this, so that I may this. Then I will do this, and this, and this. This is him speaking. If you read 2 chapters later, Elohim will visit him. I said, Jacob, I am the Elohim who heard your vow. And he would come and he would establish that vow. That is when Jacob and Elohim entered into a covenant. And from that moment on, when Elohim called, Jacob had to respond. And when Jacob called, the covenant keeper also had to respond. So it is a power, but you cannot enter into that vow just like that. It is not something, some men like, okay, oh, so fine, no, I'm going to make a vow. So like you're watching NBA, you're like, hey, Steph Curry just dropped the 3-point. After the NBA, you watch Premier League, man, just So you watch your Manchester, and then when you finish, you eat, and then when you start eating, then you sit, you go to your room, you play worship for 15 minutes, and then you're like, okay, let me make a vow. That is not how it works. So when you read this Genesis, it seems so simple, but that's not how it works. You cannot have a full stomach and make a vow. It won't work. It won't work. This is you must be at the point of dying. You must be at the point of dying where this mind, this body is almost dead, where the line or the veil between your soul and your spirit is so thin. That is the moment where you can. When Jacob was saying these things, he did not have a full stomach. That is not how you enter into those vows. But the topic was not how do I get into a vow, but that's not how it works. So let's take another example. Ananias and Sapphira. Listen.
Acts 5 from 1. But a certain man named Ananias with Sapphira his wife sold a possession and kept back part of the price, his wife also being privy to it, and brought a certain part and laid it at the apostles' feet. But Cephas said, Ananias, why has Satan filled thine heart to lie to the set apart spirit and to keep back part of the price of the land? While it remained, was it not thine own? And after it was sold, was it not in thine own power? Why hast thou conceived this thing in thine heart? That was not lied unto men, but unto Yah. And Ananias, hearing these words, fell down and gave up the spirit.
So, what happened in the case of Ananias and Sapphira? Their vow was voluntarily. The church was doing a gathering, and they said, we will sell some things in our house, and the money we make of it will we give to Yah. When they said it, they told Yah. In agreement with his wife, they told Yah, when we sell this house, we will give it to you. And when they said it, no one forced them, but they told Yah. And later on, they sell the house and they made money. And they were like, hey, it's a lot of money. So you know what? Instead of giving it all to Yah, let's give him the half. So they took the half for themselves. They were reasoning, we're just married, we have kids. Yah, I don't think Yah will mind because he knows we have to live. So no, Yah is reasonable. He won't mind, we have kids, so let's give him the half and let's keep the half for ourselves. But initially, when they said to Yah they will give that to him, that's not what they said. So they took the money, went to the feet of the apostles, and gave the half. And immediately a sword came from heaven. And Cephas was like, Ananias, is this all the outstanding money that you owe? And he looked at Cephas, and he looked to the left, he was like, yes. And Cephas said, Ananias, is this the money? And he said, Cephas, of course. And Cephas sighed. Because the moment he said that, unfortunately, the angel with the sword just took Ananias his soul on the spot. On the spot. Why? Because he made a vow and he broke it. And what really angers these spirits is like, no one forced you to make the vow. So they were patrolling, doing their business. Your name did not even come up The moment you make a vow, because it is a principle, you attract them and they come to see whether you will keep it. And then you start breaking it. So then, since they don't discriminate, they're like, hey, you broke it, you have no protection, you're dead. You're dead. And then I didn't add the wife because it's the same story. The wife later came. Caiaphas did the same thing. Sapphira, where's the money? When I say where's the money, it's a so he's like, Sapphira, where's the money? Sapphira was like, where's Ananias? Caiaphas said, no, where's the money? And this the money. Is this all the money? And then she was like, no. Is this all the money? Yes, it's all the money. And Caiaphas was like, you're lying. Because was not my spirit with you when you said to Elohim on that day? You and Caiaphas, Ananias were in a room and you were thinking, and this 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 is what you said to Elohim. Elohim heard it. And he was glad. And he was touched. You made a promise, and then when the money came, it corrupted you. And then you decided to draw back from Elohim. But he said, but if it was yours and you did not make the vow, would it not remain yours? Since no one forced you, why did you do it? It must be because they just repented and they were so happy. That's why I said, when you are happy, don't make vows. And when you are sad, don't make vows. When you are broke, don't make vows. When you are angry, don't make vows. When you are emotionally unstable, and that's what, and people think when we say emotionally unstable, it simply means, no, when you are happy, you're also emotionally unstable. So when you have a peak in your emotion, be it positive or negative, don't make vows. Because otherwise you will see what will happen as it did with Ananias and Sapphira. And what makes this so dangerous is that how Elohim now works is even more dangerous than at first. Now what he does is he just cuts you off spiritually. And that is the most dangerous one. He just cuts you off and he doesn't say anything. And how do you know he just cuts you off? You stop seeing. You don't dream. You don't reflect on him. He just cuts you off from the source. You read, you don't feel anything. You listen, you don't feel anything. You don't dream anymore. And he shuts the eyes of all those around you when it comes to you. So you become like a blind spot. So no one knows your state anymore. He just cuts you off and he lets you live. That is dangerous. You can ask any woman around. The worst feeling is to be ignored. Someone just doesn't acknowledge your existence anymore. That's the most dangerous thing. So whether you sleep or you dream or you wake up, he doesn't care anymore. That's also what can happen. So be very careful with these vows. And then, now, that was in the case of a man vowing. You can't break that vow. It is solid. It stands forever. So now, in the case of a woman vowing, Numbers 30 verse 3.
If a woman also vow a vow unto Yah, and bind herself by a bond, being in her father's house in her youth, and her father hear her vow, and her bond wherewith she had bound her soul, and her father shall hold his peace at her, then all her vows shall stand, and every bond wherewith she had bound her soul shall stand. But if a father disallow her in the day that he hears, and not so if her father disallow her in the day that he heareth, Not any of her vows or of her bonds with which she had bound her soul shall stand, and Yah shall forgive her, because her father disallowed her.
You see? So you are living at home and you were so sad and something happened. Let's say maybe you were engaged and this sweet boy tricked you. He said, "Oh, I will marry you. No, I'll marry you." And then all of a sudden, you looked on your Facebook and he was married to someone else. He didn't even tell you. And the sister, she still lives at home. You were so sad. You were so sad. And then you go to your room and you're fasting 2 days because you're sad. And in that sadness, you vow, Elohim, going forward, I won't marry anymore. I will be like the woman in the book of Matthew. I will only live for you. You are my husband. I will not marry anymore.
You are my
I
husband.
promise I won't marry anymore. I give my life 100% to you. This is my vow. I promise. That's why if you are an intelligent father, sometimes you have to sneak and listen to what your children are discussing. If you are wise, there is no such thing as privacy for your children. What do you privacy? Who, when, how? So the first thing you do, you make sure no child of yours has a lock in the house, a lock in the room. What lock in what room? What lock? Sometimes your children are in the room. You just pass by and just put your ear to the door like this for a few minutes, and then you walk by. They are your children. Especially if you have daughters, and sometimes they are so sad, they go to their room. Just visit them. They're like, "Hey, what is it?" Or when they're crying, you just listen to the room door like this. Make sure you do it. Because if she makes a crazy vow emotionally, spirits don't consider emotion. You spoke. And then the father hears the crazy vow, Elohim, I only marry you. Don't even wait until she finishes. Just open the door for, I cancel this nonsense. You will get married one day. But if you don't, she makes this crazy vow. And what's so funny is with this vowing thing, sometimes people make vows and they forget. They forget that they made a vow. Oh, Elohim, I can't have children. Now I promise, if you give me a son, I will call him Samuel, and then he will serve you. She makes the vow. Elohim listens. He looks at the state of life. He calculates in 20 years' time, the woman will be here. This will be the state in that place. I may need someone to stand for me. Let me look around. Edom. No chance. This is Ghana folk. Okay, you know what? I will honor the vow. So he allows it. The angel comes, take the seed, drops it in the womb. Now she has given forth a male child. She's happy, but she forgot the vow. That's the issue. She forgot the vow. However, the vow is pending because Elohim honored it. So the woman doesn't know she's in covenant with Elohim now because he kept it. But now the child is there. And he's still waiting for, hey, so there are things to be done, but she forgot. That's the issue. And since no person canceled it, it was honored. That's the issue. So use wisdom here. So now then, if the father hears it in time, he cancels it, then that vow does not stand. In the case of a married woman, the same Numbers 30 verse 6, and if she had
at all an husband when she vowed, or uttered aught out of her lips wherewith she bound her soul, and her husband hear it, and held his peace at her in the day that ye heard it, then her vow shall stand, and her bonds wherewith she had bound her soul shall stand. But if her husband disallow her on the day that he hear it, then he shall make her vow which she had vowed, and that which she had uttered with her lips, wherewith she bound her soul, of none effect, and Yah shall forgive her. But every vow of a widow, and of her that is divorced, wherewith they have bound their souls, shall stand against her.
So a divorced woman or a widow is the same as with a man. The moment you vow, you vow. It is unbreakable, unchangeable. When it comes to a adolescent daughter that lives with her parents, and this is the issue, even though you live with your parents, you are a woman, you make a vow, and daddy is not around, your mother can't cancel it. Because the two of you are women. Just like you are a son. You live with your parents. You vow. Your father can't cancel it because you are a man. You are a married woman. You vow because you go to a church and a prophet tricks you. That's what they do. They trick women into vows. I vow this. I will pay this type of amount every month for the coming 3 years. You hear it as a husband, you cancel that vow with immediate effect. And the moment you cancel that vow, because your wife is under your covering, the vow will not stand. So those are the principles when it comes to making vows. If you are a woman, and how you as a man can counsel or can cancel it, right? So now, because of time, the curious case of the wedding vows. Malachi.
Malachi 2 verse 13.
And this have ye done again.
Covering the altar of Yah with tears, with weeping, and with crying out, insomuch that he regarded not the offering anymore, or receives it with goodwill at your hand.
You are 25. You are a man, 30, 35, or whatever. And you start looking around and you experience stress because you want to get married. So every time you pray, you start harassing Elohim. You start, just like they say, you are passive-aggressive. So many people, their prayer approach is passive-aggressive. They are praying to Elohim, but it has a threatening tone. Van, in their heart, they're like, Elohim, je weet van me. Als je ik ga Elohim. Hey. So they are praying, but the way they are praying, it's passive-aggressive. They are threatening Elohim. But very always, like we say in Lingala, nakuzu. So you are threatening Elohim, but very on a very, very low James Bond level. So yeah, Elohim, 35. Hey, like, I have my master's now. I'm now an engineer, so I have money, Elohim. But because of you, I'm calm. But Elohim, I need a wife. So here they come and they cover my altar with tears. So you are harassing Elohim because you want to get married. You make all type of promises. I will be so good to my wife, Elohim. I will show her your ways. We will do this together. And Elohim. So all manner of promises. Read.
In so much that he regarded not the offering anymore,
To the point where he's just fed up with you now.
or receives it with goodwill at your hand. Yet ye say, wherefore? Because Yah has been witness between
But then
thee.
You are married now because he receives it with goodwill at your hand. He allows the marriage. You're now married. And then later on, he sees your behavior changing. So now you're saying, what for? And he says, for Yah has been a witness
between thee and the wife of thy youth.
He has been a witness between you and your wife,
against whom thou hast dealt treacherously.
Against whom you now have dealt very treacherously.
Yet is she thy companion.
However, she is your partner,
and the wife of thy covenant,
and you married her young, and you, this is it now, you entered into a covenant with her. Because that's what marriage is. It is a covenant, an agreement between both parties. And when you made that covenant together, Elohim was a witness.
and did not he make one? Yet he had the residue of the Spirit, and wherefore one, that he might seek a seed of Elohim. Therefore take heed to your spirit, and let none deal treacherously against the wife of his youth. For Yah, the Elohim of Israel, says,
listen, for the Almighty is speaking, and he says
that he hates putting away.
No, he loves it.
He hates putting away.
He hates putting away. He hates putting away. You are married and you divorce or you put away your wife. He hates it.
For one covereth violence with his garment, said Yah. Therefore take heed to your spirit, that ye deal not treacherously.
Your wife, you put her away. You are Mike Tyson in your house. You beat your wife. Then when she speaks back, you're almost. Then you put her away. But then you wear nice suits and you come to the church and you are a deacon. You forget he is seeing it. That's what he's saying. Read.
Luke 16:18.
So take heed to your spirit that you do not deal treacherously. Now Luke 16:18. Whosoever
puts away his wife
and married
another committed adultery. And whosoever marries her that is put away from her husband commits adultery.
So carefully, observe the typical wedding vows. So now switch to the right and read the traditional vows that men make when they marry. He says, I, blah, 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 take you.
I, person A, take you, person B, to be my wife or husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse.
Now listen carefully. To have and to hold going forward, for better or for worse,
for richer, for poorer,
for richer, for poorer in sickness
and in health,
to
love and to cherish, from this day forward until death do us part.
From this day forward until death
do us part.
90% of people who marry, especially in churches, these are the vows they make. These are the vows they make, and they say it to one another, and they enter into covenant. So read the yellow verse again. Carefully observe the typical
wedding vows done in and outside the ecclesiastical gatherings all over the globe. The very vows make it so that only death can separate a couple once married. Even the so-called Christians that like to use Matthew 19 do not put the caveat of fornication in their wedding vows, but simply say for better, for worse, etc., etc., until death do us part. And yet they end up divorcing.
Is that not correct? Is that not what they do? They take these vows, Elohim being a witness. And in their vows, they say for better, for worse, for riches and poor, in health and sickness, until death do us part. I am yet to hear a wedding vow where they say, except in the case of infidelity. Do you know why? These are emotional beings, these people. Because if you add except infidelity, it doesn't sound romantic. Do you see the madness? It doesn't sound romantic. So now we will exclude except in case of infidelity. However, these are the same people that love Matthew 19. And in the moment that their wife or so-called husband commits infidelity, they divorce. And the preacher man, who was the one who was a witness, when they made those vows, he's the one that will sanction the divorce and will cause the couple or the wife or the husband to remarry. He will be even the one that will connect that brother to another sister or that sister to another husband. And the funny thing is, spirits are not like men. We forget. Spirits forget not. They are not men. So marriage couples, they make these vows. However, in the vow, they do not add the caveat of fornication. So therefore, in their weddings vows, but simply say for better for worse, until death do us part, and yet they end up divorcing. So continue reading from there.
These crazy vows made by couples during their marriage ceremonies will condemn many souls in the day of judgment.
Many will be condemned.
Because
many will be condemned.
Because they have bound themselves unnecessarily. Be therefore wise in the future not to make such vows. Life is short and anything can happen, so apply wisdom when it comes to these things.
Yes. Don't say things just for the sake of saying things because it sounds romantic. If you want to make vows, make your own and make it one that fits your condition. Leave some space to breathe because life is very long, but it can also be very short. So don't follow these Romanized, westernized vows. The moment you take these vows, you are a liar. The moment you take it, you are a liar. Because how many couples break up because of money? Especially even us, the Bantus. The women know that the men cheat because in their nature they're allowed to have more women, and the men also know that their wives cheat. So it's not even infidelity that breaks up, especially the Bantus. What breaks them up is money. Yet they took them vows. So don't take these vows. These crazy vows. Don't take them. If you are a romantic guy, come up with your own romantic words to say on that day. Don't take these vows. Because the moment you do it, condemnidos. Condemnidos. So no questions with regards to that? Let's move. Now, I have to wrap this up in 15 minutes. Now, the spoken words of the false prophets. This is James
3:1. Not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers.
I took this simplified version from the NIV because it reads a bit more simple when it comes to this verse. So not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because
you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly.
Malachi 2:7.
For the priest's lips should keep knowledge.
It should keep knowledge.
And they should seek the law at his mouth.
And they should seek the law at his mouth.
For he is the messenger of Yah.
Proverbs 12:17.
He that speaks truth shews forth righteousness.
He that speaks truth, he sheweth forth righteousness.
But
a false witness speaks deceit. There is he that speaketh
like the piercings of a sword,
but the tongue of the wise
brings healing.
So just observe the tongue of the false prophet for yourself. Rarely do they speak healing. 99% of the time, they always speak fear. They always speak panic. They always speak stress. That is their modus operandi. That is their tactic. Because they know that in a panic state, men become unreasonable and women lose their mind. They become irrational when they are afraid. And people that use mind control, they know the quickest way to take over someone's mind is by making them emotionally unstable. That is why they use alcohol. But the biggest tool they use to control you is fear. So the tongue of the false prophet always speaks fear into the souls of the people. So the book of Jude 1:8, it says, likewise also,
these filthy dreamers,
they
defile
always
the
have
flesh.
this dream. They come to the church, they will use a Bible verse to support a dream. They quote Revelation 12, and I saw a dragon, and the whole sermon is about how the dragon wants to eat the church. That's the topic of the day. We have to be careful. The dragon is loosed. I was sleeping today, and today I dreamt, and I saw the dragon, and the dragon said to me, I'm coming for your church. And I said, never. That is the sermon of the day. So he's saying these are filthy dreamers.
They defile the flesh,
Mhm.
despise dominion,
Mhm.
and speak evil of dignities.
Mhm.
Yet Michael the archangel,
People don't know, you don't know that Satan is a dignity, That's why I told you he is a principle of life. You cannot escape Satan. You can only hide under the covenant of Elohim, because Elohim is the one that employs Satan. Just like you, when you finish at the end of the month, you get money. At the end of the month, Satan gets allowance. Elohim has made it so. He's allowed to seduce men. That is his job. So when you speak against him, you speak against dignity. Read.
yet Michael the archangel, when contending with the devil, he disputed about the body of Moses. He durst not bring against him a railing accusation, but said, Yah rebuke thee.
Michael looked and said, hey, Satan, you are my elder. Yah rebuke you. And so it was.
But these speak evil of those things which they know not.
But these filthy dreamers, these false prophets, they speak evil of things they know not.
But what they know naturally.
But so what is speaking evil of things they know not? Get up, everyone. This coming all night, we will have war night. In French, they say, tuons-le. So our converse means let's kill them. So what we will do is, this all night, we will kill Satan. This all night, every witch in your family, we will kill them. This all night, bring a sword. Every person that has ever spoken negatively about you must die. So, but what is crazy is, if you ought to kill every person that ever spoke negatively about you, the very first person that ought to die is you. Because no one speaks negative of himself more than the soul himself. Do you know after you were at home and you were like, hey, ons was wel groot, man. You're like, hey, ik ben wel kaal of zo, maar ik ben wel zwart, maar hey. Do you know after you speak bad about you? Right? So these filthy dreamers, they speak things that they ought not. So topics like, let's kill Satan, let's kill. So what you're doing is, it's madness. That is what Jude is saying. So read.
But what they know naturally as brute beasts, in those things they corrupt themselves. Woe unto them, for they have gone in the way of Cain.
Listen, now is the key. They have gone into the way of Cain.
And ran greedily after the error of Balaam.
And they have gone into the error of Balaam. So these people, and that's what they don't understand. Churches that are based on witchcraft, right? And based on deliverance service, you don't understand, you worship Satan. Why? Because he is the principal topic of every sermon you preach. Because there's two ways that you can worship an entity. If you spend energy and time on it, you are worshiping it. So if you guys spend time in your church always fearing the devil, we have to do a deliverance service, we have to do an anointing service, we have to do an empowerment service. All that you are doing is just so that you can stand against Satan. You are worshiping Satan. That's why he said, you have gone after the way of Cain, because Cain are Satan worshippers. And then he said, and ye have gone after the way of Balaam. Many people in the church, they worship Satan and they worship money. And the tongue of the false prophet is, he introduces Satan to the masses so that he can get money from them. Because when you are afraid, guess what? Now, if you want to be delivered, what will he say? Do not come to the house of the prophet empty-handed. So now you have to come to the church and you have to bring money. Why? Because you are afraid if you don't give money, you will die. You see, that is the tactic of many of these false prophets. They make you afraid so that you can pay them. And when you pay them, they will do superpowers and they will apply their magic to so-called deliver you. That is a tactic that they have been using from ever since. That is the tongue of the false prophet. So they go onto the way of Cain, ran greedily after the error of Balaam for reward, and perish
in the gainsaying of Korah.
Exactly. Gainsaying, they are just telling you fantasies. So Jeremiah 23:2. Therefore,
thus saith Yah Elohim of Israel, against the pastors that feed my people.
Listen.
Ye have scattered my flock.
That is it. Just look at your mother. Look at your father. Look at your brothers that go to all these Christian churches. They have no rest. Every campaign, every year they have at least 4 conferences. I'm like, you've been going to conferences for years. Every year they go to at least 4 conferences. They go to Den Haag, then they go to Rotterdam, then they go to Amsterdam, then they go to Belgium, then they go to UK, then they go to London. All of them chasing after something. But they don't understand that this is the fulfillment of prophecy. Where Elohim said, in the last days, I will bring a famine of the word. That people will run to and fro seeking the word. They won't find it. And their virgins will die off. Because they are running. Look at your mother. She has Bertolli oil. She has Sonneblum oil. She has all types of oil to anoint herself for any condition. One person can drink paracetamol and then put Bertolli oil and then put rib. In one person, one body, all the mixes. Why? Because she's sick. So the people, Elohim is saying, ye false prophet, ye have scattered my people.
And driven them away.
And you have driven them away.
And ye have not visited them.
And you did not visit them.
Behold, I will visit upon you the evil of your doings, said Yah, and I will set up shepherds over them, which shall feed them, and they shall fear no more.
That's the key. You see, if a shepherd feeds you, you ought to be ridden of your fear. If your pastor makes you afraid with his teachings, if all his teachings make you panic, that is not the shepherd of Elohim. The shepherd of Elohim will teach you to be brave and not to be afraid. If he will teach you fear, he will teach you to fear Elohim and no other entity. Otherwise, you will end up traumatized like the boy on the right. Look at him. He looks like some. He's so in panic. Panic. Why? Fear in the churches. That is not the way. We are bringing it to an end. Now the tongue of the messenger. Isaiah 40.
Comfort ye.
That's the key. Comfort ye my people,
saith Elohim. Speak ye comfortably to Jerusalem, and cry unto her that her warfare is accomplished, that her iniquity is pardoned, for she has received of Yah's hand double.
No, tell her she must fight.
That her warfare is accomplished.
Tell her to take the sword.
Cry that her warfare is accomplished.
Tell her, hey, there is no fighting.
Cry that her warfare is accomplished, that her iniquity is pardoned, for she had received of Yah's hand double for all her sins. The voice of him that cries in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of Yah, make straight in the desert a highway for our Elohim. Every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill shall be made low.
Make straight the way for who? For Elohim. That every valley shall be
and the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough places plain.
So this is a messenger that brings healing. The crooked will be made straight, and
the rough places plain.
the rough places will be made plain.
And the glory of Yah shall be revealed,
You see, he will reveal the glory of Yah.
and all flesh shall see it together.
And all flesh shall be amazed, not at the strength of Satan, at the glory of Yah.
For the mouth of Yah had spoken it. The voice said, cry. And he said, what shall I cry?
Because of time, skip John 4:1. Beloved, do not believe
every spirit,
but test
the spirits, whether they are of Yah, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this you know the spirit of Yah.
This is how you distinguish between a messenger of Yah and a false prophet. Every spirit
that confesses that Yahushua the Messiah has come in the flesh is of Yah. And every spirit that does not confess that Yahushua the Messiah has come in the flesh is not of Yah.
How does this work? How do you make this plain? The soul that confesses that the Messiah has come in the flesh is the soul who says, I live and die, and everything that happens to me, I will accredit to the Messiah. That's the difference. Hey, I had a bad dream. Glory be to the Messiah. Hey, I'm poor. If Elohim wills, I will make it. Hey, I'm going through difficulties. It is the will of Elohim. All shall be well. The soul that does not confess that the Messiah has come is the one who, when he goes through difficulties, he blames the devil. In blaming the devil, you are putting energy into the devil. You had a bad dream. Oh, you take up all night. And then you start going to all night, not because you love Elohim, but you are going to all night. Why? To defend yourself against Satan. That's the issue. You think you can solve things by yourself. You begin to take weapons and warfare, and you begin to do all manner of things, not knowing that it is the Messiah who is the key and not Satan. That's the issue there. So continue reading.
And this is the spirit of the anti-Messiah, which you have heard was coming and now is already in the world. You are of Yah, little children.
That's the key. That's the key. You are of Yah, little children.
And have overcome them.
And you have not to fight. You have overcome. It has been years. When was the last time that we, during our prayers, ever prayed a prayer of warfare? I don't even know how to pray such prayers anymore. War against who? If I will fight in my prayers, I will fight against the urge for sin. I will plead unto Elohim. I will beg him, remove from me any lustful thoughts. That's what I battle daily, the urge to sin. But not even 1 second do I contemplate, hey, I had a dream, or I was in my house and I heard the door open. Is that Satan? No time. That ought to be your mind. For little children, ye have overcome
them, because he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world.
That's it. So because of time, we are continuing, but that's it. So the tongue of the messenger, Romans 13:1. 3 minutes, then we're done.
Let every soul be subject unto higher powers.
Listen.
For there is no power but of Yah. The powers that be are ordained of Yah. Whosoever therefore resisted the power, resisted the ordinance of Yah. And they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to evil. Wilt thou then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and thou shalt have praise of the same.
Verse 4, for he
is the minister of Yah
to thee
for good. But if thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain.
The sword is his mouth, his pronouncements.
For he is the minister of Yah, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil.
Wherefore,
ye must needs be subject,
not only
for wrath, but also for conscience sake. For this cause pay ye tribute also, for they are Yah's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. Render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. Owe no man anything but to love one another, for he that loveth another has fulfilled the law.
So now, going back to concluding now, the blessing tongue of the messenger, the sister asked, what if a parent or someone curses you before you were born or when you were born or whatever? This is the key now. If you have a messenger in your midst and Elohim blesses you with one, certain pronouncements made over you in your time of ignorance or when something happened, sometimes he can overrule it. I'm saying sometimes, not always. Sometimes he can overrule it. Now, in the case of Jacob, remember, he cursed Reuben. He also cursed Levi. And he cursed Simeon and some other sons. Moses, being aware of it, now came before Yah and pleaded. And listen at what Moses did.
Deuteronomy 33 from 1.
And this
is the blessing wherewith Moses, the man of Elohim, blessed the children of Israel before his death.
And he said, let Reuben
live.
You see? He said, let Reuben live. So he canceled this the pronouncement of what's his name?
Jacob.
Of Jacob. He said, let Reuben live.
And not die.
And not die.
And let not his men be few. And of Levi he said.
And then he switched to Levi and he said,
let thy Thummim and thy Urim be with thy set apart one.
Let your Thummim and Urim be with him. Why? But now he's putting a condition. However, Levi must pay a price. Read.
Whom thou didst prove at Massa, and with whom thou didst strive at the waters of Meribah, who said unto his father and to his mother.
And because of this token, for him to be yours, he must pay a price. And his price will be that he will look to his own father and mother and say,
I have not seen him.
I do not know you.
Neither did he acknowledge his brethren.
He will look at his brothers.
Nor knew his own children.
And his wife and his children even.
For they have observed thy word.
And he will not acknowledge them. All that he will look to with eager is the word of Elohim.
And kept thy covenant.
And he will keep it.
They shall teach Jacob thy judgment.
That is the price that Levi must pay for this covenant. But Moses made it so that Elohim would not reject him. So where Jacob cursed Levi and Reuben, he said, let Reuben live. And as for Levi, let thy Urim and Thummim be with him, but he will always pay a price. But he negated the curses of Jacob. So continue reading.
They shall teach Jacob thy judgment, and Israel thy law. They shall put incense before thee, and whole burnt sacrifice upon thine altar. Bless Yah his substance, and accept the work of his hands. Smite through the loins of them that rise against him, and of them that hate him, that they rise not again.
So that is it, sister. So if you have a minister in your midst, certain pronouncements made against you, he can negate. And he can cancel it. But there are certain things that when he cancels, he will give you a condition. He will give you a condition. So these are things to keep in mind. And that is why you must honor, as we said in Romans 13:1, those that rule over you. Because they can pronounce things over you that will set you free or that can bound you. That is what you must understand. I hope that this answers her question. So in conclusion, Matthew 5:33.
Again, ye have heard that it had been said by them of old time.
Listen.
Thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto Yah thine oath. But I say unto you, swear not at all.
This is also my advice. This is also my advice. Things like vows and stuff and forswearing yourself. He's saying, swear not at all.
Swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is Elohim's throne, nor by earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou cannot make one hair white or black. But let your communication be yea is yea, and nay is nay. For whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil.
So if you can prevent it, don't swear at all. However, Psalms 15:1, Yah, who shall abide in thine tabernacle, and who shall dwell
in thy set apart hill,
ye
that walks uprightly and works righteousness,
and speaks
the truth in his heart,
he
that backbites not with his tongue,
nor
does evil to his neighbor, nor taketh up a reproach against his neighbor, in whose eyes a vile person is contemned, but he honors them that fear Yah. He that swears to his own hurt and changeth not.
But should you have sworn to your own hurt, blessed are ye if you keep it and do not change it. So, dear people, unless there are any other questions, these were the things for today. May Yah keep you all and bless you. And up until the next time, shalom.
There is one concluding question. It's quite a long question. I'll just read it as it is. Last time the show was about the power of the tongue from a woman's perspective. And it was with regards to their way. So it looked at the way of talking to men. That was very educational. Will there also be a lesson about the power of the tongue from the male's perspective and how they talk to women? So from the man's perspective, it is usually about general things such as communication with Elohim and elders and children and their spiritual function. But I still miss the part about how they communicate to women. For example, what does your way of talking bring about through women? And what are the effects of this? And what is Elohim's view on this? Will this also be treated? The teaching from today was also very educational, but I didn't really get into this specific subject which she's mentioning, although I was really looking forward to it. I hope, if possible, this will also be addressed as the preacher man mentioned last week.
I don't know who's next week. I don't know how you to. I think this is more like a relationship thing. Like, how do you speak to your wife? Is that what the sister is?
Yeah, because in the teaching of last week, we also looked at how women ought to address or can address their husbands, or not only the children, but also their partners as their husbands, I believe. But today, according to this, we did not really address how I think in a relationship setting, a husband addresses the wife, and how does that have impact on the wife when it comes to the communication from the wife to the husband. So I think that is what this is about.
Yeah, so I don't know. Let's see. Maybe we'll have something with relationships and then dive into that. That did not even cross my mind, to be honest. Let's see. Because I can give a very short answer. The same impact it has on the wife, that's the same impact it has on the husband. You ought to treat each other with respect, the way you speak. So things like calling someone stupid but I don't know. So let's see. Maybe if it is very important to the listeners, you may make a topic around that, but then more in a relationship perspective. But it did not cross my mind. So thank you very much for the input, sister, I suppose. So we will try to make work of that. Yes?
Great.
All right. Thank you. Shalom.